Welcome to Art Ed Radio, the podcast for art teachers. This show is produced by the Art of Education University, and I'm your host, Tim Bogatz. We have a pretty interesting topic today, one that I am looking forward to having a conversation about: comics and how we can teach with comics in the art room. And I have a couple of great guests, a couple of guys who know far more about the topic than I do, Candido Crespo and Tim Smyth. Now, this episode came about because of Candido. He created a great presentation at the Winter Now conference about printmaking, and he was incredibly popular there, and with his appearance on my podcast, his appearance on Nick's Everyday Art Room podcast. So I asked him to come back for this summer's conference, which is happening in a couple of weeks, and he said that he wanted to put together a presentation on comics. Well, he has done that, and I promise you that you are going to love it. I remember I was a little skeptical when Candido first proposed the idea. I was just thinking, is it enough? Is there enough there for a good presentation? And Candido just told me, Tim, this has everything. We're going to be exploring, we're going to be checking out sequential art and comics and interdisciplinary lessons and culturally relevant pedagogy and comic industry professions and so much more. And I have to say, my initial thoughts were very, very wrong. The world of comic art goes so much wider and so much deeper than I thought. So suffice it to say, I'm still on my journey of learning all of the art that is out there and all of the opportunities that are out there when it comes to comics. So I asked Candido to come talk to me here so we can explore a lot of these ideas, so I can learn more, so we can all continue to learn more. And Candido said, sure, I'll come on, but who we really need to talk to is Tim Smyth. Now, Tim is a history teacher from Philadelphia who utilizes comics to engage and to educate his students. And I think he's going to have a different perspective coming from outside the classroom. And I think he's going to have a lot of great ideas. So super appreciative that he agreed to join us as well. I'm really thankful that he is ready to talk to us. And I think both guys are ready to go. So let me invite them on and we will get started. All right, I have two incredible guests with me today. First is returning guest Candido Crespo. Candido, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Excited to be here. Thank you for having us.
Awesome. And also we have Tim Smyth. Tim, how are you?
I'm good. Just trying to stay out of the heat.
Yes, for sure. All right, so let's start with some introductions. Candido, I know you've been on before, but for people hearing you for the first time, can you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am a husband, a father, an artist, and next school year I'll be entering my 5th year of teaching. I've had the opportunity of teaching kindergarten through 12th grade in the same school district, Central Islip in Long Island, New York.
All right. And Tim, can you give us an introduction?
Sure. Do you want the long version or the short version?
Whatever you feel like. We'll take it all.
Candido just made me feel guilty because I always say all these things and then I forget to say, yes, I also have 3 children and a wife who, God bless her, I couldn't do what I do without her. But I'm a high school social studies teacher. My second day on the job was 9/11. So
wow.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I'm in the suburbs of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm a published author with PBS and Macmillan and Scholastic. I write teacher guides and things on comics and education. I run a website, teachingwithcomics.com, where I share a lot of what I do in the classroom. I also work with the U.S. State Department in a virtual exchange program in about 25 different countries. And we have teachers and students creating comics in a exchange. It's just fantastic. And I can go on the stuff I do, but just pinch me. It's my 12-year-old self would never have believed any of this stuff.
Yeah, that's incredible. I'm feeling wildly unaccomplished all of a sudden. So you're doing a lot of really, really cool things, Tim. So I'm super excited that you can join us. So let me start with you, Tim. You talked about your 12-year-old self being really excited about this. Obviously you've loved comics for a long time. So, any great memories? Like, how did you first get into comics? And I guess larger question, like, how did you start incorporating comics into your teaching in the first place?
Well, for me growing up in Philly, I big hip hop fan and comics. And, I was of an age where you didn't talk about comics, right?
Yeah.
Like you would have gotten beat up, you would have gotten whatever, but Public Enemy was all good to talk about and whatnot. But now we know that there's a big connection between hip hop and comics and everything. And we can talk about that later if you want. But I had a tough childhood growing up, and I've heard other people say the same thing. And it was comics that, Bruce Wayne or overcame instead of giving up, watching his parents be murdered, and he decided to make the world a better place. The X-Men being, ostracized from so much, but they decided to come together and again, make the world a better place. And that literally helped save me as a child and helped put me on a path, even to become a teacher with Charles Xavier and all these kind of things. It's just something that I found a lot of self-worth out of. But when I taught for a long time without using comics in my classroom. I was a very by the book. Here's the curriculum. Here's the textbook. Like, this is what we're supposed to do. I was afraid to go outside of all that. And I started talking about when Miles Morales was first created. And I had this young black male in my classroom who was just quiet, same way I was in high school. And we never really had personal conversations. And this kid came up to me after class and we started chatting about it. And he was more impressed that Spider-Man looked like him than our president did at the time. And I was like, damn, I'm on to something here. And so now I use comic books as artifacts, like as societal artifacts about change. I mean, I just got done reading Marvel's new voices for Pride Month. Right? Like, this wouldn't have existed when I was in high school. And so I know we're going through a lot of issues in our country and things, but my kids are growing up with all kinds of different heroes. And for me, that's what's going to lead to change. And so I started introducing this in my classroom, and I became very passionate about doing this in my classroom. And so my passion then translated to the students. And then we started making comics, and, I still do everything else. I still do all the research papers, and, I'm a really hard teacher. I ask my students, they'll tell you, but whether it's comics or anything else, if you as a teacher and administrators need to let us do this, let us be individuals and human beings in the classroom and bring in that passion. And now we use hip hop to talk about racial issues. We listen to Common, we listen to J. Cole, and we compare it to Public Enemy, and then we compare it to protest music in the 60s. These are the things that I'm very passionate about. And so the kids are too. And so this idea that social studies isn't just capital H history. It's literally everything around us. And we need to be more open to that. And so, I just started doing it. And I was actually on my way out of the classroom. I had a really awful year. And it wasn't in my classroom. It was just one of those years where outside forces came in, and I was going to quit teaching after about 14 years of teaching. And I had a staff developer encourage me to blog about what I did in my classroom. And I'm like, no, that's what millennials do. I don't want to brag. I don't want to. And he's like, no, people are going to be interested in what you do. And so I did. And literally, I got a phone call, an email from an editor from PBS. He said, hey, listen, we want you to write some articles for us. And Vicky, the editor, she literally saved my teaching career where,
wow.
Right. I was like, other people care what I do. And what's great about that is now my students are on that journey with me too. And so now we're beyond the four walls of the classroom. And so again, whether it's comics or hip hop, basketball, sewing, whatever your passion is, if you can find a way to weave that into your classroom, it's just a powerful experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, that very last thing you said, I don't know that validation is something that we need, but it certainly feels good when it comes and like it can be incredibly helpful there. So, Candido, Tim just said a lot right there. Did any of that resonate with you? Either, how you first got into comics, how you first started teaching with them, what your goals are with them, like any of that, a common experience with you as well?
Yeah, I think both are how I was introduced to comics. I guess the time that I was reading comics, and maybe how I've started to embed it in my classroom experience. So I guess when I first started reading comics, I think it's a combination of two things. It was on television with the animated series such as Marvel and Batman. And also, it was just available in my local 7-Eleven, my local convenience store.
Right.
They were just there, right? So if my old man wanted to go get a cup of coffee and I go get a Slurpee, I can also pick up a comic book. That was really cool. The thought of just having so much access to it. As a child, I couldn't have told you, where my local comic shop was. I didn't know that because nobody in my family and none of my friends were reading comics. So I wasn't like, I wasn't like covered by these things. I just knew that they were super cool. I never really looked at them as filling a void for heroes. I wasn't looking for heroes. I think it was more just like a validation of my imagination, so that I knew that I wasn't the only one that was creating these worlds in my mind. And then when I get to turn the pages of a comic, it just felt like, it didn't even feel like escapism. It was almost like I don't know. I just felt like, oh, okay, so whatever's going on in my head is also going on in other people's heads. And so I just enjoyed them in that way. I enjoyed the art. I would say that if anybody ever asked me like, oh, how did I start getting into art? It would be Todd McFarlane's Spawn. Yeah. And it's probably an inappropriate comic for the age that I was reading it. But I just thought the art was so cool. And a lot of it went over my head at that time too. So that's okay.
Yeah.
How did it start getting into my classroom, though, is a little bit different. I think very early on, I was under the impression that we couldn't become friends with our students, but because of my pre-service education.
Right.
And I was a little bit, I guess I was a little more reserved when I first started teaching. But I noticed immediately that I would get nowhere that way, not with the students that I serve, not with the population that I'm serving. And so over the years, I've just started just being super transparent with my students, and anything that I like, I have it I post it on my wall. I include it in my social media. I just let myself be an open book. Mm-hmm. And comics has been a big part of that. And so while I wasn't so open about it in my youth, as an adult, I feel a lot more confident expressing my fandom. And, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has done justice and wonders for those of us who attended Comic Cons when they were in the basement of churches, as opposed to, major convention centers. And, so that's where I'm at now. And just, students know I like comics. And so, whether I include it in the lesson or they just are asking me like, hey, can you draw, Miles Morales for me at the end of class today? That brings me a lot of joy, because I know that I'm connecting with them. And me just sharing that image with them is probably a lot more than me even having a conversation, because now they can keep that piece with them. So
yeah, for sure. That's a really good way to put it. And I think it's important, like you both touched on this, just being able to share your values, being able to share your interests is something that humanizes you. It's something that helps kids connect with you. And it leads to just a lot better teaching, a lot better learning, because those connections are there. So, Tim, I wanted to ask you, you spoke a little bit about how comics can, I guess, speak to some of the larger concepts that are out there, some of the bigger things that you want to teach. Is that the main reason you use comics? Or I guess, looking at it in a bigger picture, like, why do you think teaching with comics can be so effective?
So there's two ways. One is through my son. So my son's got a lot of medical issues. He's got this really rare form of meningitis. He's been hospitalized multiple times. I mean, he's like my own superhero. So when he was in kindergarten, his teacher termed him a reluctant reader, like in kindergarten. Right. And my son was like into superheroes and all this stuff. And I had written my master's thesis as a reading specialist on using comics and pop culture in the classroom to engage students.
Okay.
And I watched my son give up on school, like in kindergarten, because this kid's already got everything against him, right?
Yeah.
And initially, I went along with the teacher because I was trying to be the good parent, and I was a new parent, and we took away his superhero lunchbox, and we're like, no, you got to read what she wants you to read, and these little board books were like, cat sat on mat, and all this stuff,
Yeah.
and he didn't want to read that, and eventually, so needless to say, we're no longer at that school. I really realized that he wanted to read comic books. And like this kid now loves to read everything. He's on the reading Olympics team at his school. He writes, publishers send him books, like advanced readers copies, because they want him to review on social media for them. Like it's an amazing, right. Like it's an amazing experience. So there's that personal part of it. And I know with the dyslexia, and I know with Asperger's, and like all the research that we know, English language learners, all the scaffolding that we know with comics and things. So I know that from a personal experience. But I also know that with comics, we talk about when my students come in the first week of school, I have out comic books from different decades. And we go through and we look at comic books as artifacts and how things change. And the students are analyzing them for gender roles, and they're looking for representation. They're looking for the technology. They're looking for the artwork. They're looking for the letters to the editor, just like we would pick apart a letter from George Washington or, a typical primary source. And it opens up their minds to the rest of the world and what are artifacts. And it's not just, a diary entry from a president or something. It's what average people do. And, we see Batman tackle issues of police profiling. And so I can take an image from a Batman comic and put it up on the smartboard and open up a conversation in a way that I can't do of, hey, let's talk about police profiling. You know what I mean? Like the kids are like, well, it's a little up in my face. So we're able to do it that way. There's a really great Champions comic from Jim Zub where there's a school shooting at Miles Morales' high school. And, my students turn to me and are like, Mr. Smyth, you talk about comics as artifacts. Like it's in our comics now. Like, and just the air went out of the room of the realism of all this. And in there even was, they were running an active shooter drill. And there was a young lady in a hijab. So comics are great for representation because, you can write in a paragraph in a prose book, but in a comic, you can put that representation in there in 5 seconds. And she's crying. And the student turns and says, hey, it's only a drill. Don't worry about it. But it encapsulates this emotional connection that we have. And I know what we go through in our classrooms when we go through these drills because of why we're doing it, right? So like kind of all those things. And so comics come out every week. They represent a lot of what's in the world around us. And so then the second part of that is I have my students create comics. And so they're able to create a comic book about modern civil rights issues after we read the March graphic novel trilogy based on Congressman John Lewis's life. So now they become, yes, they're going to do the research. They're going to do an annotated works cited page. They're going to do all that. But now they're able to visually represent, or they take fairy tales. And we talk about fairy tales as culture. And they put a modern twist on it. And they create it in a comic book. So now, like one that sticks out in my mind, they took Cinderella, and this transitioning student wrote a story about Cinderfella. And all of a sudden, right, like all of a sudden now you're having these conversations individually in a way that student's not going to raise their hand in class and say, hey, I want to talk about, no, that's terrifying. But you do it through the artistic way, and you're able to hook these students in a way that you just can't in any other medium.
Yeah, that's a lot there. A lot of incredible ideas. Candido, I want to ask you kind of the similar question, but take it more specifically into the art room. So can you talk a little bit about how you bring comics into the art room, and do you see some of those same opportunities that the kids are getting that Tim talked about them?
Right. So I'm looking forward to re-listening to this conversation, by the way, because I think Tim is just out here just giving out information just like his website. And there's just so much valuable content. And the way I bring comics into the classroom is definitely from the illustrative perspective. But I have attempted to, and I haven't had success just yet, but to turn it into a interdisciplinary lesson. Mm-hmm. I really wanted to work with ELA teachers when I first developed the lesson of the comic strip. And the goal was really that, not just a simple, like, they write the poem and we illustrate the poem, but really like, really the other way. I wanted them to be able to do storytelling, visual storytelling, and then work with their ELA teachers to develop the story as basically accompanying the images. Like, how could they tell their story to support these images? What kind of words were necessary to support the images? Allow the ELA teacher to work with them on dialogue. But for me, I wanted to treat the space like a real pen and ink, pencil and paper space to create these stories, because I want my students ultimately to be able to develop a drawing ability that allows them to be not just expressive to get their emotions out, but also to serve the purpose of communication as well. So that's where I find myself using comics in the classroom, and also giving them an opportunity to do some escapism, some ownership of a story. I want them to experience the problem solving that's necessary of doing a sequential art project. It's just so difficult to get that same drawing, that same character over and over again. It's very different than just developing an original character. But now when you have 4, 5, 6 panels where you have to draw this same character over and over and maintain that look, it's a challenge. It's a big challenge, and
sure.
Start changing their their mannerisms. I enjoy that. I think that complexity, while frustrating, and you can see it in the students' faces, I think they're up for the challenge. And it's a type of project that provides them just that, because once it's all done, it's colored and it's presentable, then it's just like, oh yeah, you wrote a story. You just wrote what essentially a comic is like. Oh, I do want to say though, this is kind of funny. And we do a comic strip project so as to reduce the amount of time we're spending on this one particular lesson. Right. But it can be accompanied earlier with just like gesture drawings and like other ways to build like an original character so that you can create the story with. But the comic strip is unlike the comic book. So I use a comic book as my reference to grab their attention. But when I ask my students now if they know what a comic strip is or what the funnies are in the newspaper, I have there is no conversation, no discussion. They're like, Mr. Crespo, we have no idea what you're talking about. I'm like, all right, let's just stick to comics for now.
That's good. Well, I mean, nobody gets the newspaper anymore. Like I have a subscription to the newspaper, and I think I'm the only person like on my entire street. It's crazy. So I mean, kids they don't grow up reading the comics, so yeah, it's a little different world. So I guess the other big thing I want to do is get recommendations from the both of you. So Tim, I'll start with you, if you don't mind. Like, if teachers are interested in getting into comics, bringing comics into their classroom, what advice would you have for them on how to get started, whether it be comics you can use or how you can use different comics with your students?
Yeah. First, mad props to Candido. When I come across an art teacher, an English teacher, a math teacher, who, we need more teachers who are willing to go across the curriculum like that you're doing that. Like that's fantastic. So hats off to you.
Thanks.
But when you mentioned Spawn, so this is always whenever I give presentations and new teachers come up and they're all excited and, hey, I want to do this too. First thing I say two things. One, comics never replace anything else. It's not meant to replace prose. I'm not saying we're not going to read Shakespeare. I'm not saying we're not going to read whatever. It's another tool in our toolkit. And a lot of students come to me in high school not knowing how to read a comic book. They've never read one. They've never picked one up. They don't know how to do this. And so we need to teach them how to read a comic. We can't assume that they know how to do these things. The other thing I say, and this goes back to Spawn, is in America, an image will get you in trouble faster than anything else that you use in your classroom. Our ninth graders read Slaughterhouse-Five, right? Vonnegut. And I call it the alien sex war book. Like, it's just...
that's accurate.
Right. And that's okay because it's literature. But if you've got, a skin tight suit, or you've got two boys kissing in a comic or something like that, and that's the only thing that parent sees or that administrator sees. So I do say that you got to know your community. You got to know what you're doing. Yeah. Particularly when you're first beginning. I can get away with a lot more things now than I would have tried when I was a beginning teacher, because I know what I'm doing and things like that. In terms of how to access. So first thing I always say to people, and it's surprising, is go find a local comic book store.
Yep.
It's amazing what you can find in there now. And I mean, for one thing, girls work there now. I mean, when I was a kid, it was all white boys. Like it was all white males pretty much in the comic book store. And that's, in a lot of cases, I'm the minority in the store. And that's a great thing to see.
That's great.
And also if I'll plug my website, it's all free, but teachingwithcomics.com. The most popular part of my website is whenever I find really good online free comic books to use in the classroom, I park them on that part of my website. There are a lot of free comics that are out there. Sunday Haha, they send out an email every Sunday with comics that you can use. There's the nib for more adult type things. Like there's lots of different things you can do. And I have a class set of all three of the March graphic novels. I'm blessed in that my administration did that. And so teachers always say, like, well, I don't have enough money to buy, So like I said, I might use one panel from a comic and put it up on a smartboard, right? I don't buy 30 copies of that, although sometimes I do that too. And that comes out of my own pocket. The other thing you can do is I have a growing class library, is I may not have 30 copies of one title on refugees, but I might have 20 different titles on refugees. And so the students can read them separately. And now they're engaged in a conversation in small group discussions right. And so they have different options, different experiences, those sorts of things. So there's lots of options out there.
Yeah, for sure. So, Candido, what about you? Like, where do you get started with things in the art room? Or what advice would you have for teachers who want to bring comics into the art space?
All right. So first, I think it's only right that we plug the Summer Now conference, because during that time, I am giving information regarding what I think are some good comics to use in the classroom.
Yeah.
I think first, the first thing to do, and Tim mentioned it, is understand who you're serving. By now, if you're teaching, 2+ years, I'm going to say 2, because I'm going to give grace to the 1-year teacher, but you should know who your population is by the second year you're in that classroom, in that community.
Yep.
And you should definitely then search for the comics that you feel are going to make a difference and the impact inside of the classroom. I too agree. Visit your local comic book shop, and I think a great way to do that this summer is actually typically Free Comic Book Day is in May, but it's moved to August this year. I think if you go on the Free Comic Book Day website, you type in your zip code, you find out where your local comic book shop is. It's a great day to go. It's a little bit busy, but it's a great opportunity to find out who the local comic fans are in your community. You get some free comics. You get to build a little community while you're there. I've exchanged business cards in that space before. It's really cool. So that's something that I think those people who are interested in doing so, take advantage. August 14th is a free comic book. I would say use comic conventions as professional development. Find your way, speak to your administrators and tell them, like, hey, I'm going to go to this comic convention, and it's providing me with a lot more access and networking than me sitting here listening to somebody talk about group settings inside of my classroom. So, push your administration. Our teachers know all about fighting for advocacy. I think we're all going through it.
Yep.
I think DEI is going to be super push. Tim provides some excellent resources on his website. If you ask me and Tim wasn't on this conversation, what a resource of mine would be, I would say his website. It just has it broken down in a way that just allows you to really jump into a lesson and understand and have some good foundation. So yeah, I'm an advocate for his website as well. And yeah, that's it. I think if I could give one graphic novel just now is Nubia Real One is pretty cool. It's a different take on Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman has a black sister, and it follows, instead of it just being an Amazon based or an adult version, she is a teenager going through teenage life, and it is a really inclusive story that tackles a lot of issues, and I enjoy the illustrations and the writing very much. So Nubia Real One.
Nice. I'm intrigued. So Tim, not to put you on the spot, but I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you give us one recommendation for people to check out, something that you've been a fan of recently?
I actually just read, they call this Enemy. It's George Takei's experiences as a 4 or 5-year-old in Japanese American internment camps.
Yeah.
And I had the pleasure of interviewing the authors of the book. And And so now I'm actually reading his autobiography.
Oh, nice.
Where they kind of based the story on. And so I want to use that next year in my classroom alongside of March, because we need to understand that the civil rights movement isn't a black and white issue. It wasn't just a 60s issue. It's much wider. It's much broader. It's still going on. And I think when you use a comic book in that way, in fact, I had one kid who just hated comics, and that's okay. But so she brought her dad in to I'm the comic book teacher, and that's not real teaching. And she sold me out. And I just said,
sold me.
Right. Instead of me defending it, I literally just handed the dad March, and he's like, wow. He had the idea, like a lot of people do, that comics are not real literature, not real reading. And he went up talking to his daughter about, what, and again, it's not the only thing that we do. And so that was pretty much like, look, if you really don't like it, read it. And then you'll move on to things that you do like. And that's part of life too. But man, Dad was emailing me all throughout the year for recommendations and that kind of stuff too. So yeah.
Nice. I like that. All right. Well, Candido, we'll direct everybody to your now presentation so they can check out more. Tim, can you tell us one more time about your website so everybody can explore that and find some resources there?
Yeah. So it's easy, teachingwithcomics.com. And I'm at History Comics on social media. Feel free to get in contact with me if you need any help with selling your administration, parents, or getting started. I am more than happy to help in any way that I can.
Awesome. Sounds great. Thank you both for your time. This has been an awesome conversation. Hope everybody enjoys it. I hope everybody learns a little bit. But like I said, I really appreciate your time. So thank you both.
All right. Thank
you.
That was a really fun and, for me, a really eye-opening conversation. So thank you to Tim. Thank you to Candido. And I think we might have another line of exploration there with the connections between hip-hop and comics. Might be worth some further discussion. So what now? Okay, what next if you want to explore more about comics? And what next if you want to learn about how comics can be used in your classroom? I would recommend, just a great place to get started is Tim's website. Check out historycomics.net. Follow him at History Comics on social media. I believe he has a Facebook page as well, and just a plethora of great ideas and great opportunities to further your own learning and get some ideas on how you can bring comics into your classroom. And of course, as Candido mentioned toward the end there, the Now Conference is coming up in a couple of weeks. His presentation there is going to be spectacular. If you have not registered yet, get on it. And that is coming up on Thursday, July 29th. You can find everything you need to know about the conference, and you can get registered on the AOEU website. So until then, I would say go read some comics, go see what resources you can find that can help you teach with comics, and think about how those things might be helpful for you, for your classroom, for your students. And I think it'll be enjoyable for you every step along the way. Art Ed Radio is produced by the Art of Education University with audio engineering from Michael Crocker. Thank you, as always, for listening, and we will be back with you again next week.